You believe there is a moment unfolding right now. Physics does not contain that moment. You believe the entire universe shares a single present. Physics says no such common slice exists. You believe time is moving forward. Physics only describes relationships between events. There is no variable in the fundamental equations that represents now. There is no global plane sliding across the universe to create a present. What you call now does not appear in the basic structure of reality. It is not defined in the geometry of spacetime. It is not conserved. It has no independent physical status. If you stop watching here, you will carry an assumption that physics removed more than a century ago. The issue is not that time moves slower than you think. The issue is that it may not move at all. If there is no absolute present, what exactly are you experiencing at this moment? If there is no absolute present, the idea feels abstract. So reduce the scale. Imagine a long train moving at constant velocity across a flat plane. You stand at the midpoint of the platform. Another observer stands at the midpoint inside the train. Two bolts of lightning strike the front and the back of the train. From your position on the platform, the flashes arrive at the same time. You conclude the strikes were simultaneous. The observer inside the train is moving toward one flash and away from the other. For that observer, the light from the front arrives first. They conclude the front strike happened earlier. Both of you are correct. You believe simultaneity is objective. Physics says simultaneity depends on motion. This is not a perception error. It is not delayed reaction time. It is built into the structure of spacetime. In 1905, the equations that replaced Newton's framework removed absolute simultaneity. They did not reinterpret it. They eliminated it. Two events that are simultaneous in one inertial frame are not simultaneous in another moving frame. There is no privileged reference frame that restores agreement. There is no hidden universal clock behind the scenes. You believe that beneath the disagreement, there must be a true ordering of events. Physics says the ordering depends on geometry, defined by relative motion. The consequences are structural. If observers in relative motion disagree about which events are happening now, then there is no global slice of reality labeled present. Not because we failed to find it, because the equations do not permit it. The Lorentz transformations contain no universal present parameter. They relate coordinates between observers moving at different velocities. Time and space mix. What one observer calls space, another partially calls time. This is not metaphor. It is algebra. You believe the present is a thin layer sweeping forward across the universe. Physics says no such layer appears in its formalism. Space-time is described as a four-dimensional structure. Events are points within that structure. Different observers slice that structure differently. Each observer constructs a plane of simultaneity. Those planes tilt relative to one another. There is no master plane. If two observers cannot agree on what is happening now, then now cannot be an absolute feature of reality. It becomes local, frame-dependent, conditional. You may assume this only affects distant objects, galaxies, high-speed spacecraft, extreme cases. The principle does not scale with distance, it scales with velocity. Every motion introduces a different slicing of spacetime. Even the rotation of the Earth, even your movement through the room. The differences are small at ordinary speeds. Small is not zero. The structure does not change with magnitude. Only the numerical effect changes. You believe the present surrounds you like a sphere. Physics says it tilts with motion. Once simultaneity becomes relative, the concept of a shared cosmic present dissolves. There is no universal agreement about which distant events exist right now. Not because of signal delay, not because of ignorance, because geometry does not define that category. The equations do not fail, they predict measurable consequences. Time dilation has been confirmed. Length contraction has been confirmed. Relativity of simultaneity belongs to the same structure. If one component holds, the others follow. This is the open problem. If no observer has access to a universal present, and spacetime contains no preferred slicing, what is the status of the moment you believe you inhabit? The destabilization is geometric. It does not resolve by returning to intuition. Intuition assumed something the equations never did: the present. Relativity of simultaneity does not feel threatening at first. It sounds technical, it sounds distant, but it carries a structural implication. If observers in motion disagree about which events are happening now, the idea of a flowing present already contains a fracture. You believe time moves like a current. Physics does not contain a current. In Newton's universe, time was absolute. It ticked uniformly everywhere. All observers shared the same cosmic clock. Relativity removed that clock. What replaced it was not a slower clock, not a distorted clock. It was a geometry where time and space are interwoven. You believe the present advances forward. Physics defines coordinates in spacetime. Look at the equations. The Lorentz transformations include no term for flow. They relate spatial and temporal coordinates between frames. There is no variable marking a global now. Time does not sweep across the manifold. The manifold simply exists. This is the first escalation. The absence is mathematical. If a theory describes gravity and motion with precision and never requires a flowing present, then the flow is not fundamental. It is interpretive. You may say experience contradicts this. You feel time passing. Feeling passage is not defining a physical entity. No experiment detects a present slice moving through spacetime. Experiments detect time dilation. They detect simultaneity shifts. None detect now moving. You believe the present is a boundary between what exists and what does not. Physics assigns no such boundary. Consider two distant galaxies. In your frame, a supernova may be occurring now. In another frame, moving relative to you, that same supernova may belong to the past or the future. The disagreement is not delay. It is not signal travel time. It is the slicing of spacetime. Observers draw different planes through the same four-dimensional structure. Those planes determine what counts as simultaneous. If the slicing changes, the category of now changes. If slicing depends on motion, now cannot be universal. This is structural. You believe there is one present moment shared by all observers. Physics says there are many possible presents tied to motion. No observer has privileged access. No frame is preferred. The geometry contains no master orientation. If the present depends on motion, your present depends on velocity. Every change in velocity tilts your plane of simultaneity. Every motion redefines which distant events are occurring now. Standing on Earth is not still. The planet rotates. It orbits the sun. The sun orbits the galaxy. Your world line curves through spacetime. With each segment of that curve, your distant simultaneity shifts. The differences are small at human speeds. Small is not zero. The structure remains the same at all scales. You believe, at least locally, there must be a solid present. Physics limits even that claim. Within a small region, simultaneity can be approximated. Approximation is not ontology. The structure still lacks a global present. What if time is not something that passes, but something laid out? In Minkowski's formulation, spacetime is a four-dimensional manifold. Events are coordinates within that manifold. An event is not becoming. It is a point. Your birth is an event. This moment is an event. Your future death is an event. All are located in the same structure. The manifold does not update. It does not advance. It contains. You believe the future does not yet exist. Physics includes no mechanism that brings it into existence. The equations describe the entire spacetime configuration. They do not add slices one after another. There is no line in the formalism that advances the present. The structure is static in the mathematical sense, not frozen, not evolving through a moving boundary. Change appears as variation across coordinates. A world line traces the history of an object. The world line is part of the structure. It does not grow. If spacetime contains all events and simultaneity is relative, then past, present, and future are not fundamental categories. They are perspectival. You believe the present is what exists. Physics describes existence as all events in spacetime. Was, is, and will be depend on your position along your world line. As you move along that world line, your psychological state updates. The manifold does not. There is no external clock pushing you forward. There are only geometric relations between events. If every event in your life is located in spacetime, the you at age 10 is as real within the structure as the you sitting here now. They are different coordinates on one world line. You experience one coordinate at a time. The structure contains them all. You believe you move from past to future. Physics can describe you as a four-dimensional object extended in time. A spatial object extends in space. A world line extends in space-time. Your sense of progression relates to entropy. Entropy increases in one temporal direction. That gradient produces memory asymmetry. You remember lower entropy states. You do not remember higher entropy states. This creates the impression of flow. Entropy produces an arrow. An arrow requires direction. It does not require a moving present. The arrow of time explains orientation. It does not restore absolute simultaneity. If time does not flow and the present is not absolute, what anchors your experience? You believe awareness illuminates an advancing slice of reality. Physics provides no such illumination mechanism. It provides coordinates, relations, light cones. Events inside your past light cone can influence you. Events outside cannot. This defines causality. it does not define a universal now. Your light cone differs from another observer's. Causality remains intact. Simultaneity does not. Relativity preserves causal order for light-connected events. It removes absolute order for space-like separated events. The present, as imagined, includes space-like separated events. Those events have frame-dependent ordering. You believe that right now, far away, a specific configuration of distant stars is objectively occurring. Physics says that configuration depends on your motion. Change velocity, change slicing, change what counts as now. The geometry remains consistent. The equations are silent about a moving present. They do not deny experience. They do not encode presentness as fundamental. If the present is not written into spacetime, it must emerge from something else. Whatever that is, it cannot contradict geometry. The fracture is no longer local. It reaches from distant galaxies to the idea of a shared moment, to the sense of time flowing, to your own trajectory through spacetime. Nothing speculative was required, only geometry. Up to this point, the instability appears to target time. Flow disappears. Simultaneity fractures. The present loses universality. Consider a different possibility. What if the disturbance is not time, but your assumption about its geometry? What if the discomfort does not come from physics removing something, but from physics revealing what was never there? Einstein wrote, "For us, convinced physicists, the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion." This statement is often treated as metaphysical. It is not. It follows from spacetime geometry. If simultaneity depends on motion, no observer can define a global present. If no global present exists, past, present, and future cannot be absolute layers. They become relational descriptions. They attach to world lines. The pivot is not that time is unreal. The pivot is that temporal categories are not fundamental coordinates. Spacetime contains no labels called past or future. It contains intervals, causal structure, metric relations. What changes between observers is not reality itself, it is the slicing through it. Different observers draw different cross-sections through the same four-dimensional manifold. None of those cross-sections is privileged. The destabilization shifts here. It is no longer about clock rates. It is about structure. If spacetime contains all events, and no slicing is absolute, what you call the present is not a layer moving through the universe. It is a frame-dependent perspective through a fixed structure. The frame widens. The question is no longer whether time flows. The question is what kind of structure allows observers to disagree about now and still be correct. If no slicing of spacetime is absolute, the structure itself must carry the explanation. Spacetime is not a stage where events appear and disappear. It is a four-dimensional manifold. An event is defined by four coordinates, 3 spatial, 1 temporal. These coordinates do not wait to become real. They specify position within the structure. In Minkowski geometry, space and time unify within a single metric framework. The invariant interval replaces absolute time. Light cones replace universal simultaneity. Every event has a past light cone and a future light cone. Events inside your past light cone can influence you. Events inside your future light cone can be influenced by you. Events outside both are space-like separated. Their ordering depends on motion. This geometry defines causality. It does not define a global present. Once this is accepted, a broader implication follows. If the manifold contains all events and no preferred slicing exists, the entire spacetime configuration exists as a whole. This is called the block universe. The term can mislead. It does not imply rigidity in the everyday sense. It describes a four-dimensional structure where all events belong to the geometry. Your childhood is not erased. Your future is not waiting to be constructed. Both are coordinates within the manifold. You experience one segment of your world line. The structure contains the entire line. Nothing in the equations causes new events to enter existence. They are located, not generated. This does not remove causality. Causal relations remain embedded in light cones. What disappears is the idea of a moving boundary called the present. You believe reality updates moment by moment. Physics describes fixed geometric relations among events. The difference is subtle. It is decisive. Change still occurs. It appears as variation along world lines. An object at one coordinate differs from the same object at another coordinate. The coordinates themselves remain part of one manifold. The manifold does not refresh. A natural objection appears. If all events exist within the structure, why do we experience direction? The answer lies in entropy. Entropy increases toward one temporal direction within our local region of spacetime. Low entropy conditions characterize what we call the past. Higher entropy conditions characterize what we call the future. This gradient produces memory asymmetry. You remember lower entropy states. You do not remember higher entropy states. That asymmetry creates the impression of flow. Entropy does not create a universal now. It establishes an arrow. An arrow defines orientation. It does not define a moving boundary. The arrow of time explains psychological progression. It does not restore absolute simultaneity. The geometry remains unchanged. The manifold contains all events. Light cones structure causal order. Entropy defines temporal orientation. None require a present layer sweeping forward. You believe the present marks the frontier of existence. Physics provides no such frontier. Existence in this framework is the set of all space-time events. This clarification adds nothing new to the theory. It makes explicit what the structure implies. Space-time geometry eliminates universal simultaneity. Removing universal simultaneity removes a shared present. Removing a shared present leads to a four-dimensional ontology. The conclusion follows from structure. If the manifold is primary, the present is perspectival. If the present is perspectival, your current experience is a coordinate-dependent view within a larger geometric whole. If all events are equally part of spacetime, this moment is not privileged. The geometry does not highlight now. It only relates events. Within that relation, your experience occupies one position along a world line embedded in the manifold. If spacetime contains all events, and no moment is geometrically privileged, this room is not unfolding. It is located. The light reflecting from your screen is an event. The sound reaching your ears is an event. Your heartbeat, your breath, your shifting attention. Each is a coordinate along a world line. You believe this is happening now. Physics describes it as a position in spacetime. Nothing in the geometry marks it as special. If another observer moved relative to you, your frame would move relative to them. If another observer moved relative to you, their plane of simultaneity would tilt. Events you call distant and simultaneous would rearrange in their description. Neither description would be incorrect. The structure permits both. Your experience feels immediate because memory is asymmetric. Entropy provides direction. Causality constrains influence. Neither grants this coordinate ontological privilege. This moment does not sit at the edge of existence. It sits within a four-dimensional structure that does not update. You are not standing at the front of time. You are occupying one segment of an extended space-time trajectory. The realization is not dramatic, it is geometric. If there is no absolute present, the moment you call now is not the frontier of reality. It is a perspective within a fixed structure that already contains what you call past and what you call future. Nothing in the equations allows a return to the assumption that this instant is uniquely real. If this moment is not uniquely real, and all events are embedded within the same four-dimensional structure, the question shifts. What is you inside that structure? A sequence of experiences moving forward, or a world line already extended across space-time? You believe you are advancing through time. Physics can describe you as a continuous geometric object. A body extended in space has length. A life extended in space-time has duration. In this framework, duration is not accumulating, it is laid out. If every stage of your life occupies a coordinate in the manifold, choice does not carve reality into existence. It corresponds to relations within the structure. Does this eliminate free will or redefine it? If entropy provides direction but not privilege, and geometry provides structure but not flow, the sense of becoming emerges within a fixed whole. If all moments coexist in space-time, the version of you asking this question is one coordinate among many. The equations remain silent about which coordinate feels central. They describe structure. They do not assign meaning.